Welcome to our latest installment of the Investment Leaders Guidebook podcast. I am Brian Kozlowski, partner with Focus Consulting Group. Today, I am pleased to be joined by Sandeep Ghela, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Compliance Officer for Independent Franchise Partners. Founded in 2009, Independent Franchise Partners is a London-based specialist equity boutique that offers the franchise investment approach to institutional investors through a dedicated, independent investment management partnership. For those unfamiliar with the franchise investing, it focuses on listed public equities of companies that demonstrate dominant and durable intangible assets, brands, patents, etc., and offer compelling absolute value. IFP, as Independent Franchise Partners is known, portfolios are offered in three flavors: global equity, U.S. equity, and global ex-tobacco. Some background on Sandeep. He joined IFP in 2010 as the firm's head of middle office. He was promoted to his current role in 2018 and was elected a partner of the firm in 2020. Today, he is responsible for IFP's non-investment functions and is playing a pivotal role in implementing the firm's strategic vision. Prior to joining IFP, Sandeep was a managing consultant within the financial services practice of Navigant Consulting, where his role included providing independent franchise partners with operations advice and management. With over 25 years of industry experience, his career focus has been in investment operations and technology, with roles at various organizations in the UK and South Africa. With that, Sandeep, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Good to be with you.
So our topic today is strategy. And as we have a lot of conversations with clients throughout the year around strategy, and what we've seen is many firms express a desire to develop a strategic plan, but they really struggle with getting from the idea of it being a concept to it being truly an action. So we're interested, as IFP is now into its strategic plan, what were some of the key drivers for the firm in getting from, you know what, maybe we should do this, to, you know what, let's actually do this?
Yeah, I think, Brian, we had one key driver, and that was a leadership transition that took place at the end of 2021, end of 22, actually. And that change in leadership meant that the incoming managing partner wanted to bring the team together and to help with, I think, a collective mindset, work out where we wanted to take the firm. It afforded us an opportunity to not only pause and reflect on where we've come, but more importantly, on where we wanted to go for the next few years. And so when the idea was floated with the other partners, I think everyone jumped at the opportunity to work together and try and develop a strategic vision for the firm.
What were some of the key elements as you think through a transition in leadership that got buy-in? And I'll ask the question on two levels. So buy-in certainly from all of your partners. So that's one level. But what we found is those plans that are successful are those that gain broader buy-in across the organization. And in a lot of ways, that is actually more important. So what were some of the strategies that you've been able to use to be able to gain that buy-in at both the leadership and at the team levels?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think from the outset, it was important for the partners to ensure that everyone across the firm, bought into the strategic plan. It's part of the firm's culture, and as a team of approximately 30 people, it was important that everyone felt like they owned this. While it's not practically possible to have 30 people, define the strategy of an organization, we knew that we needed the support of the broader team to get the implementation right. And so I think that's where, when we worked with Focus Consulting and you and Keith in particular, were very helpful in bringing the GHOST framework to us. And I think your listeners probably know what the GHOST framework stands for: the goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics model. But that really was a great framework because the partners working with yourself and Keith came up with the high-level goals and objectives, but we left the definition and development of the strategies and tactics down to folks within the team. And this enabled pretty much almost everyone at the firm to be involved in some way or the other in working towards the delivery of those strategic objectives.
Yeah, no, and that's a real key that you touch on, is having folks in the business that are impacted by these strategies, having a active voice in the plan. And you guys have done a great job with that. Because when we're often called in, or what we've seen strategic plans fail, has been when leadership has attempted to develop a plan and try to push it down to the organization. And what you see is, well, the reaction typically is, hey, that's leadership's plan.
Yeah.
And when it fails, and unfortunately, oftentimes those types of strategies do fail, the finger pointing starts. I wasn't consulted. I didn't think about this. This isn't mine. This was leadership's. Versus folks having this ownership mentality of, hey, I had a role in this. And one of the things I'm curious on, because when you have this approach, it's extremely beneficial, but you have to be very clear on decision rights, between input rights and decision rights. How have you been able to parse and be able to explain the differentiation between the two while still keeping folks pretty active in the implementation of the plan?
Yeah. So look, we once the high level goals and objectives were defined, we identified strategy owners, and the strategy owners then solicited volunteers for the tactics. And it was great to see active engagement across the board. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. Everyone bought into it. But at the same time, making sure that those strategies and tactics actually achieved the goals and objectives that have been set by the partners was really critical. And so I've been responsible for sort of, overseeing that and sort of making sure that the ideas and the input that's coming from across the team still continues to point us in the right direction that the partners have set. And so from a decision-making perspective, I would say that the strategy owners to a large extent have that, but then that overall, feeds up into me and I oversee that. It's a great way of, ensuring that people are accountable, but also have ownership and buy in to the process. And so, I haven't sort of exercised too much sort of authority around, curtailing ideas. But it's also important to ensure that we move in the same direction. And I think by and large, we've managed to achieve that.
Yeah, which is great. And as you know, a strategic plan is a living organism. And I tell this story often. I was working with a client several years ago, and one of the questions we ask when we first start a strategy engagement is, have you had a strategic plan in the past? And I was sitting across the table from a CEO, and he said, yeah, I do. We have one. I said, can I see it? He said, sure. And he went up to his bookcase, pulled it off out of the bookcase, and I hand over heart, he literally dusted it off and gave it to me and said, here's our strategic plan. I then asked in a very curious way, since there was dust on it, when was the last time you looked at this? And his response was, whatever date is on that document was the last date. That's not a strategic plan. That's a paperweight.
Yeah.
It's an act of creative writing. And as you're experiencing now, a strategic plan is a living document, and it needs to stay alive within the organization. I'm curious, now that you're into it about a year and a half, what are some of the things you've done? And I know we've touched on some of it as far as driving it down to the organization, but some other ways you've been able to keep it alive at IFP.
Yeah. So again, look, that advice that you shared with us at the outset of us going into this process was exceptionally helpful. We made it a living document by putting the full plan up on a SharePoint site that everyone across the firm could access. We asked all of the strategy owners to update the strategies and the tactics as and when they were completed. And in fact, we didn't even wait until things were completed. We had a sort of update or comment section where people would even just put in short one-liners around what they were working on, what they were focusing on over the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. And that is the way in which you keep the engagement, and it's visible for everyone to see how this is progressing. In addition to that, we have bi-weekly firm-wide meetings, and the ghost work or the strategy work is a standing agenda point. So we'll talk about how things are tracking to plan. We'll ask people to come in and talk about something of interest that they're working on. We'll celebrate success if a tactic or a strategy has been completed. So it's really become part of the framework and the culture of the firm. And it doesn't feel, I mean, I know it's sort of outside of the day-to-day that people, have in terms of their responsibilities at the firm, but it's so ingrained now that it doesn't feel like it's a foreign or separate piece of work. It's sort of part of what the firm's doing, at least for the next sort of year and a half, given that we're halfway through it now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think a key part, and there's no doubt developing a strategic plan is a lot of work up front, probably eye-opening for most folks when they get into the process.
Yeah,
But once you get into it, what you realize is it becomes part of your fabric. It becomes part of your
totally.
DNA. And it doesn't become something that operates on the side. It becomes part of who you are. One of the
Yeah,
things I really appreciate, and I'm going to use that word intentionally about how you're keeping it alive, is appreciating and celebrating the victories. Because I think that is one of the key elements to keeping a strategy alive, is seeing those, is being able to live and get excited by things you're doing well. Just curious, what are some of the things that you're doing just to appreciate those victories as you accomplish the
yeah.
plan?
Look, we've had a few that we've sort of completed. Part of the ways in which we've celebrated, as I said, is just recognizing folks through those firm-wide updates. Some of them have delivered really tangible results. We've been working on a strategic implementation of a system that's now been bedded in and successfully tested and implemented for the last few months. We have a drink celebration coming up next week to mark the occasion, just bringing everyone together. And I think those little things, just recognizing when people have done a great job, the impact that it's had for the firm. And I think what makes it real is when people recognize that these are new capabilities that actually make their life easier, and they get a sense of the firm moving forward in our industry. I think those are real small, intangible, but important wins.
Completely agree. It's interesting when you think about developing a strategic plan. We talked about a lot of firms think about it in concept. It's hard to get to reality. And sometimes where the lines get blurred is they try to do it on it as a DIY project, do it yourself. And, you know, you are busy on a day-to-day basis, and it's sometimes hard to get the momentum because you just get distracted by your day-to-day job. Interested, what are some of the benefits, or what have been some of the benefits of working with an outside consultant and working with you to develop the strategic plan?
Yeah, I mean, look, so as an organization, we don't shy away from working with external parties. We recognize that we're not experts in everything. And so when we need help, we're not afraid to seek that. And we also don't like to do things by half measures. So, when we were thinking about this and we thought if we're going to do this properly, let's work with someone who's got the experience. Let's avoid the pitfalls and the common mistakes that others have made in this. And, you alluded to some of them, developing a document that's too long, or that has too many items that people forget about, lose interest over time, and you don't actually achieve anything. And so, what we learned through the initial conversations with yourself and Keith is that, working with an experienced consultant brings a lot of experience. The frameworks that you mentioned, all around the ghost framework that I mentioned earlier. And I think that just structured framework that has been tried and tested ensures that you have a higher probability of success. And for us, I think working to a framework has meant that we've come up with an output, even though it's a standardized industry approach, I guess. We've come up with an output that's quite specific and bespoke to our firm, that's meaningful to our firm, and that's going to deliver tangible results for us. Not at the end of the 3-year period, but as we have been working over the last 18 months and even in the next 18 months ahead. So, I would encourage folks to think about bringing that external perspective in, because it also helps, to bring in the knowledge and experience that you've gleaned from other clients and others in the industry, right? Because you you can be quite insular at times if you try and come up with this by yourself. And so you may miss things. And I think working with an external party brings a broader external perspective that could possibly be overlooked.
That's great. And I think as you think through the balance of getting folks to, it, from my perspective, and I'm probably obviously biased, but to get the balance of allowing folks to focus on their day jobs, but also to have an advocate on the outside who can help to push you to get you to the point where you need to get to and leverage that experience has been a great partnership. And I really
Yeah.
emphasize that word partnership between us and the work we do with IFP. Because it really was. We get to know the organization really well. We get to know what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. And we can help to mold a plan that helps you on that pathway to where you want to be in the next 3 years. And as a consultant, it's a very fulfilling experience to be able to be privileged to be on that journey with you.
Exactly. And it wasn't just, the few days that we spent together trying to develop the goals and objectives. You helped us with a framework that allowed us to sort of monitor and track progress. You support us through the initial phases as we started to get those strategies and tactics up and running. And all of which, has sort of, I think, contributed massively to the success that we've enjoyed thus far. We know we're far from completing all of it, but it's clear that we've made good progress. And that's one of the other things that we've given quite a bit of thought to is how do we track progress against the plan? Yes, you've got the plan and you can tick off, which strategies and tactics you're getting done. But people that have day jobs, as I say, we haven't brought in a separate team to implement the strategy.
Yep.
So we've been flexible around timelines, as business demand has ebbed and flowed. We've accommodated people's schedules and timelines have shifted accordingly. And we've also been thinking, it's not a simple case of, well, we had, I don't know, let's call it 100 tactics and we've done 50 of it. So yeah, we're at the 50% mark, because one tactic could be, a 2-day job and another one could be a 6-month job. So, the scope of work around the strategies and tactics does vary, and just simply counting the number of checkboxes you have against them isn't a real true measure of progress and success. So we've tried to take a more nuanced approach to it. But I think, having the tracking matrix around it, the tools that you provided around some of that, discipline around ongoing conversations, touching base with people, I think is all made really easier for us to make it a success.
I think another piece of appreciation for the way you've approached this is with the flexibility in realizing, we start out initially with a pathway and a timing. And in reality, the world changes, our businesses change, our needs change, and we need to be able to be flexible with that. And you guys have done a great job in being able to approach it in that way. And we have to be nimble and realize that our industry is changing extremely fast, and we have to be in a position to change with it.
Absolutely. And I'll also add that, we have had examples where perhaps we've gone down a path and we've realized that's probably not the right way to go. And so we've recalibrated, we rejigged the strategies and we've, taken a different approach. So it's by no means sort of a perfect plan from the get-go, if I can put it that way. You've got to remain vigilant, you've got to remain fluid and responsive through the process. And I think, again, going back to the broader team, the input that you get is really valuable. People should not underestimate how much creativity and idea generation you can get from a broader team. And as I say, most importantly, you want to kind of make sure you focus on the goals and objectives that you set out to achieve. But if there's different routes and paths to achieving that, be open to that. And I think that goes a long way in also ensuring that people feel like they are genuinely part of the process and not simply just a delivery team.
My last question might actually touch on things you just mentioned, but there are a lot of people who are thinking about strategic planning for various reasons now. As the industry changes, their businesses change, their needs change. If you were to give those folks one piece of advice from where you sit today, what would that be?
Look, I think firstly, I would say, just do it. It takes the first step to get the ball in motion. So if you're contemplating whether you should or shouldn't, think, come up with a strategic plan, I think it does add value. It allows you to think carefully about, where you want to take your organization. I think it helps with alignment. It gives people purpose. So there's a lot of good reasons why to do it. And then I think, I've probably mentioned it before, but I genuinely think the most important aspect is to get the buy-in from all of the firm. And again, for us, culturally, that's very much in keeping with the way we operate, even on an organic basis day to day. But that really is, I think, the secret to the success here, because as I said, you've got people. We're fortunate; we've got an amazing team, and everyone was genuinely excited to be a part of it. Everyone wanted to play a role, and giving people the opportunity to do something outside of their day-to-day jobs, is really important too. It's also given others an opportunity to present themselves in a different light. You sometimes only see people in a certain way because you're used to them playing a role day to day. But, for example, people leading, a society-led goal, and you see a completely different side of that individual, and you don't realize, the capabilities and potential that folks have. So for me, it's about keeping people on board, motivated, and just sort of driven to do the right thing and to deliver for the firm. And as I say, that's inherent in almost everyone that we've got at the firm. And so I think that is something that people should try and achieve. And it's going to be a challenge for larger organizations. If you've got several hundred people or even thousands of people, it is a challenge to implement that. But I'm sure there's creative ideas around how you can sort of come up with a different framework. But buy-in is really important.
That's great. Sandeep, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with our listeners and your experience. I trust they will take a lot away from our conversation today. So thank you.
No, and thank you to you and all the folks at Focus for your help and support in getting us through the process. We're not quite at the end of the process, but I'm feeling very confident that we are going to implement all of the goals and objectives and strategies and tactics that we've set for ourselves over the next 18 months. So we'll definitely keep you apprised as things progress. But I'm very excited about the outcome and getting to the end of that process.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We look forward to being with you next time. Bye-bye for now.